Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the honor and privilege to have as a guest today Monique Ferrell. She's not only a mom, a wife, but she started her career in the federal government as a GS4, which is an entry level. And now she's retired as a member of the Senior Executive Service, Tier 2 in the Army, which is an equivalent to a major general in the Army, you guys. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Monique Ferrell. Hey, Monique, how are you?
Hi, Laura. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored and I'm humbled that you asked for an opportunity to talk to me about me and my life as a careerist, a wife, and a mother. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Monique. I am just so excited to listen and learn about Monique. There are so many facets to you, and I want our listeners to understand who Monique is, because there's multiple layers when you become a mom, when you become a wife, and then when you have your own successful career. Monique, can you explain to our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, let me tell you how I describe Monique. First, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm an auntie. I'm a godmother. I'm a really good friend to many of my friends. The one part of my life that's missing is that I'm not a grandmother yet. And I'm desperate to be one, but I know that in time that will come. You can see that I talked about my family first because that's most important to me. But I have to tell you that I'm also really proud that I'm a career civil servant, recently retired, as you mentioned. I just retired on July 31st as an Army senior executive. I also describe myself as a mentor, a coach, and a teacher because I do recognize that the accomplishments that I've had, not everybody has them. But what I hope to be is a beacon of light and an example for so many of us to say it is possible. You just have to put in the work. I'm down to earth. You know this about me, Laura.
Yes,
I'm a
I
people
do.
person. I'm loving, fun loving. I really love to have a good time, but I'm also passionate and I'm dedicated. So that's who I am.
And the beacon of light, Monique, that you mentioned, that is the light is what guided me to you. You have very strong characteristics and morals that I cannot wait for the listeners to hear. So let's start from the foundation. Growing up, did you see yourself traveling the world and experiencing so many different cultures?
I did not, Laura. For your audience, let me tell them a little bit. I grew up on a 32 square mile island, St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands in the Caribbean. And even though I grew up there, I visited the States quite often as a child because my grandparents lived in New York and had family members in other parts of the continental United States. So I got to travel to the States, but I never traveled internationally other than to other Caribbean islands. So, no, I didn't see myself traveling the world and experiencing different cultures. But being an Army wife and an Army civilian, I had the opportunity to do just that. And it was, oh my God, so amazing. I have to tell you, though, that the very first assignment, I said that I was a wife. I guess I should say that my husband was active duty Army. My husband retired after 38 years of service in the Army. And so much of my life and my career, I was busy following him around. So his first overseas assignment, accompanied overseas assignment, was to Germany. And I was really nervous about going to Germany. I was nervous. This was in the early 1990s. And I was concerned about being so far away from my family and friends. Remember me saying my family's in the Caribbean, my friends were primarily on the East Coast, and we were going to Germany. And you might not be able to relate to this, Laura, but This was a time where long before there was a prevalence of cell phones, I didn't own a cell phone. Okay. And back then it was really expensive to call back home. Now you can pick up a phone when you're overseas and call anywhere else. And it's almost as cheap as calling from state to state, local calls here, but it was very expensive back then. So I was nervous, but I have to tell you that I learned to take advantage of being in a different country and taking advantage of all there was, to all they had to offer. We lived during our tours with my husband, we lived in 3 different cities in Germany and we traveled all over Europe. That was an amazing experience. But also as a civilian, I got to travel quite a bit. So I traveled for my job in Europe. But then later in my career, I led what we called our expeditionary audits team. And I deployed to Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan for almost 2 years. And that was one of the most life-changing and extremely fulfilling parts of my life and my career. So no, I didn't see it coming as a child, but I tell you what, it was tremendously rewarding and I've learned so much.
So what did you enjoy the most out of all the cultures, being from St. Thomas for one, and then having to see all of the other cultures? What did you enjoy the most besides the food, Monique? Don't say the food.
Now, okay, see,
That's the easy.
see, you know me so well, Laura. How did you know that that was the first thing that was on my list? I especially enjoyed trying the different types of foods and learning how they assimilated with the culture of the people. That was amazing. But I also enjoyed seeing how people lived. Different styles of houses, the things that they valued compared to what we value in the United States. I really enjoyed observing their norms and their cultures. And, there's simple things like in Germany, one of the first things that I was so surprised about. Now, we had the benefit of being able to live on post, but we had friends who lived on the economy off the base. And one of the things that was shocking to me was when I learned that when you're renting a house in Germany, they don't always come with closets or kitchens. Sometimes you have to go and buy a kitchen and install it.
Oh,
Or
wow.
buy closets, they call them wardrobes, and install them into your house. And you know me and my love of clothes, right?
Yes, Monique,
So,
yes.
so even though we lived on post and we had a government furnished, house, the closets were quite small because they were still built as if they were for Germans. So that was very, very shocking for me. And the other thing was off post, generally speaking, the houses, they didn't have full size refrigerators like we had. They would have very small refrigerators because the Germans, they eat a lot more healthy. They don't eat a lot of foods with preservatives and everything. They would go shopping, grocery shopping every 2 or 3 days to buy their perishable items. So unlike me, where I have not only my refrigerator freezer, but then another freezer that I stock with meats and everything as if we're going to be hunkered down for months, they generally don't do that. So I was learning, a lot of different things. But I'll tell you, another thing that I really loved about living, particularly in Europe, was the fact that there were so many countries that were next to each other. And we could just get in a car and drive to visit another country in just a few hours. On the weekends, for example, from where we lived in Germany, we would drive to Switzerland for the day and go and do shopping and have lunch and come back home. We would drive to France. We took bus trips to Poland, to Czechoslovakia, to Italy for shopping. We took a bus trip to Austria, and well, I really didn't learn to ski. I never got off of the bunny slope, but that's a whole different story. But so we had so much fun and so many different experiences. And in the countries, I got to meet some of the local people, learn a little bit of the language and become friends. I have some friends that have remained friends with us now that we've been back in the States for so many years. And then during my deployments, when I was deployed to Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan, I was just so proud to deploy as a civilian and work alongside active duty service members, other civilians and contractors. I was proud to be an American and make a difference in what we were doing over there. So there's so much for me to talk about what I enjoyed about living and working overseas.
Yeah, Monique, I actually agree with you about Germany. My mom was stationed there. I was a military brat there, and Germany I loved, and I loved the aspect that we were able to travel. I remember going to England. I remember going to France easily, or going to the other side of Germany, just hopping on a train and going. It was
Yes,
just wonderful being able to experience that. And one of my other guests I was speaking to, I was telling her, I was like, we don't have that in the United States. We're not able to jump and go to a whole new culture.
right, right,
I mean,
right.
that the taking it
So
back.
for those people who might be concerned about, if you're young in your military career and you're thinking about an overseas assignment, I
Yeah,
say go for it.
absolutely.
Oh my God, it stretches you beyond measure. And the things that you learn and experience, it just adds to your bank of memories. And when you start to get older in life, and I mean, I don't consider myself old by any means, but I can now look back and think about all of the things that I did and all of the things that I experienced, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
All those memories, all of
That's
those
great.
great memories. So, as a part of, having those memories, you being a mom and constantly having to travel and relocate to a new base, Monique, describe to me some of the challenges that you had to overcome.
Oh boy. Okay. Where do I start on this? Yes. It's not all a bed of roses. I definitely did have challenges. So, and me, Laura, I give it to you straight, no chaser, right? When my sons were very young, I had the normal challenges that most people have of finding reliable and trustworthy childcare. Okay. So when we moved, for example, from Fort Hood to Fort Bragg, and having to go to a new location and finding somebody that, whether it was um, on post childcare in the childcare facility or home childcare, finding people that you felt you could trust with your children. My children were my everything. And so that was a challenge for me. When you compound that with, okay, so we moved to a new base and I finally found childcare. And then with my job, sometimes they would send me TDY, and the type of work that I did, I didn't go TDY just for a couple of days. My TDY assignments, because I was doing audits, would be for months at a time. And I would be on what was called either 5-day TDY, where I would go on Monday and come back on Friday, or 7-day TDY, where I would go on Monday of one week and return on Friday of the following week. So I would be gone for 2 weeks at a time. And so when I was very young, and remember, my husband was active duty, he was young in his career, and he was just, hard charging, go hard. I was the one responsible, really, for raising our kids, and I wanted to have my own career. I told my husband that when we met. And so oftentimes I would take my children on TDY with me, and when people hear that, they just don't believe it, but it's true. Because I was going for several months at a time, I would go on TDY. For example, one time I was going down to we were stationed at Fort Bragg, and I was being assigned on an audit down in Jacksonville, Florida. I packed up my little Nissan Stanza. At that time, I had one son, Rob, and I packed the car. I put his little pass. He was a toddler. He was about 2. I packed the car with his little tricycle. I packed his little VCR because he used to watch the Dr. Seuss videos. I packed a little cookie jar, and I packed some of his other toys and my work clothes, drove down to Jacksonville, got to Jacksonville, checked into a hotel. I had to find a hotel where I had a little suite so that we weren't just in a room with just a bed. And the first day that I was supposed to report to work, I called my boss and I told him I'll be into work when I have childcare for my son. And I had gotten the names of several different childcare facilities close by where I was going to be working. And I went to 2, 3 of them, and I got to one, and it just felt comfortable. And I signed all the paperwork, and I left my son there. And I said, and this is one thing I always say, God takes care of babies and fools. He was taking care of that baby because he knew I was leaving him there. And he was taking care of me, the fool, because look at what I was putting my child through. But let me tell you, I would not change a thing. I really wouldn't. The experience that my young son had traveling with me, and then I used to do that when I had my second son.
Oh,
I did it with
wow.
2 children, taking them on the road as toddlers. I did this until my sons started going to preschool. No, actually kindergarten, when I couldn't take them on the road with me, and it I grew so close to them. The relationship between me and my sons, mom and sons, and the experiences that I gave them, they learned how to behave because we lived in a hotel. We ate out dinner every night. They had great manners because I was just about that. You weren't going to embarrass me in a restaurant while we were having dinner. They became very disciplined, and I tell you, I wouldn't change any of it. Once the kids started going to school, that of course was another challenge. And because as we moved from base to base, I always worried about how they would acclimate to another school. How would they find new friends and acclimate and become comfortable? Both of my sons were very smart, very different personalities. One of them was very outgoing, and the other one not so much. And so the second one, I always had to keep an eye on him when we moved because he wasn't excited about the move. He didn't go out to meet friends, and I always worried about that. But one of the things I will say to your audience, Lara, is that our military children are very resilient.
Absolutely.
They are very resilient. What they need to know is that they are loved, they are encouraged, they're supported, they are the center of the family's lives, and you will see how they rebound so quickly. And they just do, they adapt to whatever environment we put them in.
And Monique, what you just described is not like everyday, civilian mom, wife would have to do. Taking your kids, going to work in a whole new state. I mean, Monique.
I know, it's crazy. Do you know, at my retirement ceremony, one of the questions that somebody asked me was, how did you do it?
Yes.
And I said, yeah, I don't know how I did it. What I tell people is just do it. If you have a desire, we can figure out how to do all of the things that we want to do.
Absolutely.
Right? If it's the fun things, for example, if I want to go find a fete, a soca fete, right? A party.
Yes.
I'm going to figure out how to do it, right? Mm-hmm. If I want to find a nice outfit, I'm going to figure out how to do it. Well, what I had decided was that, yes, I wanted to be married. I met the man that I fell in love with when I was in college, and he was in ROTC. So I knew he was going to be in the Army. I had no idea what that meant to me. So I was learning. I was learning along the way. I had no military experience before, but I was determined that just because I married him, it didn't mean that I had to give up my desire to have a career. So I had to figure it out along the way.
So do you feel like these are sacrifices that you made because your husband had such a successful career in the military?
Oh, of course. I had to make some sacrifices. I made many sacrifices, but I have no regrets. For example, one sacrifice that I made, we were moving from one base to another. And the fortunate thing that I had, Lara, is that the agency that I worked for, it was an Army activity, a civilian agency for the Army. And so we had offices in many locations at most of the big bases in the United States and then some overseas, right? But as I got promoted to higher levels, there wasn't always a vacancy at the level that I was at in the office that I was going to. So this one particular time we were going, and I won't say the name of the field office, but I was going to a field office, and I had been promoted to GS-13 by that time. And there wasn't a GS-13 vacancy. And so they told me I had to take a downgrade if I wanted to be able to go to that office and keep my job. And was I happy about that? No, I wasn't happy about it, but it was a sacrifice that I had to make because I wanted to keep my family together. They offered me, I could have gone to another field office and kept my grade, but that's not what was best for me and my family. So I made that sacrifice. Another sacrifice I had, we had opportunities to go to long-term training at universities, at other government organizations. And because my children were young and my husband was often in high up-tempo assignments, and I couldn't leave him with the kids, I had to pass on that. So even though when you talk about this expansion of my career and the fact that I was very successful overall, I started off very slowly and I didn't get promoted at the same level and the same times as some of my peers because my focus was, first of all, making sure I took care of my family and maintaining my career. My family was always first. Okay, so I had to make those sacrifices, but it was okay for me because that's what was important. Being able to keep my family together, take care of my family, and have a career. And I knew that my children wouldn't be young forever. And so I knew that if I invested in my family early on and making sure that they had the right values and they were well taken care of and they were doing well in school, that eventually they would fly the nest, leave the nest, and that I would then be able to focus more on my career and have more flexibility. And my husband was really supportive. One of the things he did was when he looked for new assignments and he would put his preference list, he would always select installations where he knew my agency had field offices so that I would be able to retain my job, even though I may not have been able to retain the grade that I had. And then the other thing is that as the children got older and my husband saw that I was really doing well and I had the opportunity to advance into higher levels of leadership, he made a huge sacrifice. When he went to Germany for a brigade command position, it was at the time that I was very competitive to be promoted to the GS-15 level. And but to get to that level, I needed to stay at our headquarters in the Washington, D.C. area. And he told me, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and stay? I'll be okay. And we just worked as a team. Every other month I would fly over to Germany and spend time with him and got to know the members of the unit. And, from a distance, I would do whatever I could to support him and the family units over there. So it really, really was a team effort. And I'm really thankful to him for just as I supported him, he supported me in my career.
He absolutely sounds like he was there for your career and you were there for his career. And as a team, you guys basically made sacrifices on both sides to make sure that you guys were able to feed each other when it came to your career progression.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Laura.
Monique, having that career, right? Having to be a wife and a mom, what are some of the things that were absolutely key? Give my listeners some tips on your key successes for being a mom, a wife, and a career woman.
Okay, I will tell you first of all that naturally I'm not a very organized and disciplined person. I'm very free flowing, carefree. But for all of this to work, that were some of the skills that I had to develop and put into my toolkit. I had to be organized. I had to be disciplined. And one of the other things that I did was I built a network of friends who could help me, who I could rely on to support me and help me with the kids or whatever while I was focusing on my career and juggling everything that I was doing. I let me the true thing though, Laura, and I think I said this a little bit before, is you have to be determined. And what is the thing that fueled me? I was a first generation college graduate in my family. My parents had not, gone to a 4-year college like I did. So I was a first generation college graduate. And I had dreams and I had desires. And it was things that my parents instilled in me from young. And they said, we want you to do better. We want you to be better. And so when I went off to college, although I didn't know exactly where my career would take me, I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted to be independent in that I could take care of myself, but if I was fortunate enough to have a family, that I could be a contributing member of the family. And so it boils down to the fact that I was determined. And then the other thing that I'll say to your listeners is it's so important to get a mentor. It's so important to look around you and say, identify people who are doing well, that you say, I like how they operate. I see how they do business. I want to model myself after them. And then get a mentor, somebody who can help navigate through sometimes it's treacherous waters. But I'll tell you, in a mentor-mentee relationship, it's important that the mentee, the person who's being mentored, recognizes that they have to do some hard work. They can't expect the mentor to lay everything out for them, do everything for them. They should come forward with some ideas about, Here is what I would like to do. And here's how I think that I could go about doing it. What do you think? Can you offer any alternatives or some additional suggestions for me? So it's very important. It's a two-way relationship, and the mentee is really willing to work hard. And then the other thing I'll say is that it's all about relationships. So for you military members out there and you family members out there, every time you go to a new installation, you go to an event, you have an opportunity to meet people and have, even though you might be shy, find a way to open up and talk to people, because the relationships and networking is what will get you into the door. Once you get your foot in the door, it's up to you to perform and then stretch your wings from there. But oftentimes getting your foot in the door, it's reliant on having relationships with other people. So you have to learn how to develop those relationships and feel comfortable with developing relationships.
I agree with you, Monique, because I know in my career, starting out in college and going up the ranks, full-time college student, full-time working, a mentor and networking has got me to the position that I am in my career today. So I 100% agree with you. And regardless if you are federal, civilian, entrepreneur, wherever you are in the facet of your life, mentors, if you can speak to them, because sometimes I mentor folks. Monique, believe it or not, you're my mentor in my head. But mentors, regardless of just seeing someone's life and how they
Yes.
explore things and maneuver through obstacles. And you
Right.
don't always have to talk to your mentor, but if you see exactly what they're doing in their life,
You can emulate
it,
that.
absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. And I'm glad that you made that for your listeners, because you don't necessarily have to have a formal mentor mentee relationship.
Yeah, it's I find it very challenging sometimes with, the chaos that we have in our personal lives and our professional lives, trying to add on an addition of being a mentor to someone. Sometimes it's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. And
It
so
absolutely is. And, and sometimes, and I feel bad about it, but people have asked me to mentor them, and I've had to reluctantly say, I can't. And the reason is because I take that formal mentoring role, that responsibility very seriously. And I don't want to say that I'm a mentor and I'm in this formal mentor relationship with you and I don't have the time to invest in you.
correct, absolutely. So Monique, with you being, oh my gosh, I don't know how many titles you have, but just in the title of being a military wife, give me three words that has described your experiences.
Exciting, rewarding, and I don't know if this word probably doesn't describe the experience, but it describes me as a military wife, and that's thankful. So first, exciting. My experiences as a military wife was so exciting because, as I said, I look forward to living in different places, experiencing new cultures, traveling all around the world, and even in the United States, going to different bases and meeting new people, right? Rewarding. It was rewarding because I feel like I also served. My husband served in uniform, but I served as a military spouse.
Yes,
I
you
was able to serve service members and their families. I was able to be a mentor and a role model for spouses and female soldiers. And with my husband, together we served as an example and a role model for young couples. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't always easy. Marriage is hard work. I've been married to that dude for 37 years. And sometimes it's hard. But what we have been able to demonstrate is that when you put in the work and you respect each other and you love each other and you're patient with each other and you communicate with each other, the hard work pays off. And finally, the word thankful. I'm so very thankful for my life as a military wife. Some of the best friends I have are those that I met serving around the world. They've become an extended part of my family. But I will say that as a military wife, that helped complete me. I can't now, when I look back, I can't imagine my life any other way. So I'm really thankful.
Monique, I keep telling you, you are a total boss. I keep telling you that I
I don't describe myself that way,
there
Laura.
is
I
not
really
there,
don't.
you are the population of maybe what? Maybe 5% of the world that can juggle all this or has juggled all of this. I mean, we didn't even get into the conversation of, who your husband was. I think
I
that,
didn't.
just highlighting who your husband was, people will be like, what? She traveled how many times? She did what? Monique.
So for your audience, I won't say exactly who he was, but my husband climbed the ranks from a private E1 in the Army and retired as a lieutenant general. Okay, so we navigated this life together.
Exactly.
So if that opens your eyes a little bit more about the complexity of our life and why Laura is just so bewildered about how I was able to do this. But and Laura, I don't know, and then sometimes I tread lightly around this topic, but I shouldn't because I have enormous faith, and I say, but God. And He really has given both of us the things that we need to work together and to navigate through and overcome storms and trials and tribulations and to be successful. And because of that, we feel the responsibility to pay it forward.
Absolutely. And you might not know that you have paved it forward for a lot of other folks that, they might not have told you thank you, but I will tell you thank you on the behalf of everyone that you have touched, you and your husband. Just thank you for being you, Monique. I know that you mentioned at the beginning of the introduction that, you want to become a grandmother and that you're a retiree, but tell me what is next for Monique Ferrell.
That's a tough question, Laura, because of what's happening right now that we're in this space of a worldwide pandemic. As I said earlier, I retired in July 31st, and I was really looking forward to spending my first year in retirement and just doing some traveling to places that had been on my bucket list for many years. As a matter of fact, next week we were supposed to be boarding a plane, going to Bali, and then going to Bangkok, and we were going to bring in the new year in Phuket. So I'm just distraught that I'm not going to be able to take that trip. And I had other trips planned. I was going to Greece with some girlfriends in August. I mean, I just had so many things planned and not happening right now. But I know that I'll be able to travel soon when it's safe to do that. But what's next for me beyond traveling? First, I look forward to continuing to serve others. I don't know exactly in what way yet, but the things that I'm passionate about women's issues. I'm passionate about helping women find their voices, find their authentic selves, and then learning how to use that. I'm passionate about working with young adolescent girls and boys to prepare them for their future and help them to recognize that really there are no boundaries or limitations to what they can do. But Laura, after all of these years of pouring into other people, I also look forward to pouring into myself.
Yes.
I know that I need to take care of myself. I need to take better care of my physical self, this temple that God has blessed me with.
Yes, absolutely.
That is going to be one of my focus, and also really focusing on my spiritual well-being. So that's it for me. And like you said, wanting some grandbabies in the future. I keep saying that. Yes, yes, yes. I keep saying that. But that's what I see in store. So it's nothing, very definitive. I don't have specific plans yet. There's some people who retire and they jump right into another career. Start whether it's starting their own business or going right back into work. I worked for over 36 years with taking short vacations in between. I did not take extensive periods of time off when I had my sons back in the mid 80s. So I've worked for a long time and really, really hard. And so I think I deserve a little bit of time off before I jump into whatever is next.
So it sounds like a second career is on the way. I'll give you some time, Monique. I'll give you a
Maybe,
year
maybe,
off.
maybe.
I'll give you a year off, but that second career seems like it's coming soon. So again, listeners, Monique, is there anything that you want to leave my listeners with?
Yes, I want to leave your listeners with, just one final thought. First of all, thank you for your service. I understand that your audience is primarily military and their service and their family members. So thank you for your service. Our country is great because of what you do each and every day to protect our freedom. And to the family members, you serve as well. So thank you for your support to your service member, your support to us as Americans. And we are a better nation because you choose to serve. So I thank you very much.
Well, you heard it first, you guys. This episode touched on so many different facets. Monique, I would love to have you back, especially with that second career coming. But you guys, Monique started out as a GS4 entry level. She ended up being a senior executive service tier 2 in the Army. Now she is retired. You guys, please, 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 just join me in thanking Monique. Thank you so, Monique, for joining us and giving us all of those tips, tricks about the challenges of being a mom, a wife, and a boss. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember that freedom is not free. This is your host, Laura Figures, and I'm signing out.